All right, this is part 3. The first chapter is titled Gentlehands, and this is from A Dog's Life. I slept in the back of the truck until I felt it jerk to a stop. Then I heard doors slamming, and then, just like before, all the people began to vibrate. All the people began to talk at once. Here we are. I hope they're open. Is the vet open on Saturday, do you think? I'll run inside. What did they do with dead dogs? Hush, don't worry about that now. Hello, we have an emergency here. That was the man. He was calling to someone. A few moments later, the doors at the back of the truck were opened, and first I and then Moon were slid out and rushed into a building. A woman in blue clothing opened a door and hurried all of us, the man, the woman, the girl, the boy, Moon, and me, into a small room where Moon and I were laid side by side on a table. The woman in blue was opening drawers and laying things on a counter when another woman, this one wearing a white smock, busted into the room. She held out her hand to the man and the woman and said, "Hi, I'm Dr. Roth. I understand we have an emergency." Before the man or the woman could answer her, Dr. Roth began to examine Moon. "We don't know whose dogs they are," said the man after a few moments, "or whether they even have owners." He shook his head. "We think that one is dead," he added, indicating Moon. Dr. Roth nodded. "I'm afraid so. If it makes you feel better, she probably died instantly. She didn't have time to feel any pain." I heard the woman let out her breath. "Well, I guess that's good. We do feel terrible, though, even if it was an accident. I mean, we never saw the dogs coming. We were driving down Bostock, and they just came flying out of the woods." "They're not wearing collars," the man added. Dr. Roth laid her hand on my head. "I imagine that this dog," she said, looking into my eyes, "has led a pretty hard life." She stroked my ears. "We'll try to find out if she has owners, but I bet she's been on her own for quite a while." She ran her hands up and down my back, then my belly. "Lots of scars. She's been in a few scrapes, and she hasn't been spayed." Trying to fix this. "But that's no surprise." "What's wrong with her?" asked the boy then. "Why isn't she moving?" "I'm not sure yet," replied Dr. Roth. "She doesn't look too bad. We'll take some x-rays and find out what's going on." She stroked my ears again. Dr. Roth and the woman in blue laid a blanket over Moon, then slid me onto a moving table. They wheeled me out of the room. I never saw Moon again. Later, after Dr. Roth and the people at the vet had finished looking at me and looking at the pictures they took of me, I was laid in a large cage on a bed of soft blankets. At one side of the cage were a dish of water and a dish of food. Around me were other cages with other dogs in them. One dog was whining and one was barking, but the others were mostly quiet. I crawled to the dish of food, ate some of it, then curled up on my side on the blankets. I had a pain in my shoulder, the same shoulder that had been injured when George threw me out of the car, and that is the part of my body that Dr. Roth had taken the most pictures of. I'd almost fallen asleep again when the man and woman and girl and boy came into the room, followed by Dr. Roth. "Here's our girl," said the vet, leading them to my cage. "She's resting now." The girl and the boy peered in at me. "What did you find out?" the man asked Dr. Roth. "A few things. I think she's about 2 years old. She weighs 40 pounds, which is a good weight for her size, and she's fairly healthy, although, as I thought, she's led a tough life. She's been in a few fights, and I can see an old fracture on her right shoulder, which healed up pretty well on its own. Also, she has fleas and quite a bit of tartar on her teeth. Her main problem, though, is a broken leg. It's badly broken, too." "Can you fix it?" asked the girl. "Yes, but she'll need surgery." "Surgery?" repeated the man. "That sounds expensive." Dr. Roth hesitated. "Well," she said, "there's nothing else seriously wrong with her. If her leg heals, she'll be just fine." She reached into my cage and patted me. Dr. Roth had very gentle hands, even when she was touching the most painful parts of my body. "She's such a nice dog," she went on. "She has an awfully sweet temper, especially for a stray. I think she'll make a wonderful pet if we can find someone who wants to adopt her. Speaking of which, as long as she's here, I'd like to spay her and give her her shots." I'm going to try to focus this, guys. Well, so we just reset it. There we go. I hate to ask this, said the man, but who's going to pay for this? After all, she's not our dog. I can donate my time, Dr. Roth replied, and I know of an organization that may be able to cover the rest of the cost. I'll call them this afternoon. All right, said the man. He was edging toward the door. Come on, he said, and the woman, the girl, and the boy joined him. He was about to leave when he turned back to Dr. Roth and said, Thank you so much. We really appreciate what you're doing. It's my pleasure. Dr. Roth gave me a final pat, then quietly closed the door to my cage. Sometime later, a day or maybe two, Dr. Roth repaired my leg and spayed me so that I wouldn't be able to have a litter of puppies. I don't remember when any of this happened, only that eventually I woke up in my cage feeling very groggy and with a huge pain in my leg. I whimpered, and the woman in the blue outfit, whose name was Rachel, called for Dr. Roth, who gave me a shot, and I fell asleep again. The next time I woke up, I felt a little better, and soon Dr. Roth was coaxing me out of my cage. Oops. Out of my cage and encouraging me to walk across the room. This wasn't easy. I was wearing a huge plastic collar around my neck, and there was some sort of heavy contraption on my leg, but I couldn't see what it was. Good girl, good girl, Rachel and Dr. Roth said as I hobbled and slid across the linoleum floor. They patted me and gave me treats and told me I was brave and beautiful. One day, the woman and the girl and the boy came to visit. By now, I knew their names, Mrs. Becker and Marjorie and Donald. The kids wanted to see how the dog was doing, said Mrs. Becker. I was hoping it would be all right to visit her. Marjorie and Donald peered at me through the bars of my cage. She looks much better, exclaimed Marjorie. Why is she wearing that thing around her neck? Asked Donald. To keep her from biting her stitches, replied Rachel. We want her leg to heal as fast as possible. Her tummy too. She's doing just fine. Here, I'll let her out of the cage and you can see her walk. Rachel opened my cage and I stepped out onto the floor and scrabbled across it. Then I walked back to Rachel, and she wrapped her arms around me, and I rested my head on her shoulder. See how sweet she is, said Rachel. Have you found a home for her? Asked Mrs. Becker. Rachel shook her head. Not yet, and no one has contacted us about a missing dog. Mommy, could we have her? Cried Donald. Please? Please? Asked Marjorie. Oh, kids, I don't know. I'll have to discuss this with your father. The Beckers left, and for the next few days I continued to practice walking. Soon my belly was feeling better. The contraption was removed from my leg, and then the collar was removed too, and a different kind of collar, narrow and colorful, was fastened around my neck. Rachel began attaching a leash to the collar and taking me for walks outside. I didn't like the collar or the leash at first, but Rachel was patient and talked softly to me about the importance of good doggy manners, and after a while I was barely aware of the collar. One day, Dr. Roth entered the room, opened my cage, rubbed my ears, and said to me, Good news, girl. You have a home. The Beckers want to take you. A few days later, when I was walking almost as well as before the accident and I didn't need any more medicine, Mrs. Becker and Marjorie and Donald returned. Donald was carrying a blue leash and jumping up and down, shouting, She's our dog now, she's our dog now. And Marjorie was grinning and holding a stuffed animal in one hand and a treat in the other. Rachel clipped the blue leash to my collar and said to me, We're certainly going to miss you, girl. You were one of our best patients ever. I'm glad you have a home, though. She walked out to the Becker's car and helped me into the back seat. Then she patted my head and said goodbye, and I could tell she was crying a little. In the car, Marjorie sat in the front seat with her mother, and Donald sat in the back seat with me. As we drove along, Donald said, You're so lucky. You're going to be our new dog. Your name will be Daisy. We already decided. Remember the dog we had last summer, Mommy? Sasha was a good dog. Sasha wasn't our last summer dog, said Marjorie. Last summer's was Shadow. Sasha was 2 summers ago. Oh, yeah, said Donald. You're right. We drove on to my new home. And